Good evening. A few days ago, a man named Larry Summers engaged and lost to a verbal discussion with the comedian Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart has always been very good at bringing a swift kick to people who said things that make no sense for the common man, and he did so to Mr. Summers. Or Dr. Summers, actually. For those of you who don't know who Summers was the Secretary of the Treasury under Bill Clinton. Subsequently, he was the president of Harvard University, and he now holds an endowed chair in Harvard University in economics. This is not the first time that Summers has said things that raise eyebrows. In August of 2001, Summers and Dr. J. DeLong presented at the Reserve Bank of Kansas Symposium, and the document that they presented at that time was then subsequently republished in the Economic Review as The New Economy: Background, Historical Perspective, Questions, and Speculations. And in that presentation at the Federal Reserve Bank Conference, they said that due to the expanding technologies, it was becoming increasingly difficult for companies to make profits based on the historic economic paradigm in capitalism that the value of the good is the marginal profit after creation. They went further in saying that as prices normally equal marginal cost, and technology was driving marginal cost toward zero, that the solution they saw, this is greatly shortened from the paper, but I will link the paper below, the solution they saw might be short-run monopolies, which of course, if you know much about capitalism, is the epitome of capitalism fears short-run monopolies more than it fears communism or anything else. And yet here they were, major capitalist economists, calling for short-run monopolies as we got closer and closer to zero marginal cost. And they said that that was probably the right way to think about a complex series of issues that is not yet clear. But it is clear that the competitive paradigm is no longer fully appropriate, and they went on to suggest the use of short-run monopoly because they do not yet know what the proper replacement paradigm would be. So they were suggesting these short-run monopolies as a temporary method of maintaining a pseudo-capitalist model until they, whoever that is, figured out what to replace it with. There are many contradictions in their paper. If you read it, you'll see them. But this call to wait or temporarily sustain present capitalism until they come up with a replacement paradigm was particularly striking to a lot of people, including Jeremy Rifkin, who subsequently published about it in his book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society. Now, those of you who know me, and I'd have to get awfully big before a lot of the people watching these weren't people that are friends of mine. I don't expect that. So, those of you who know me know that I have a penchant for joining things and staying in them. I was a member of RPGA from the day that it was founded. I was a regional director, co-regional director for 8 years. I was a member at one point or another in my 3-decade career at Empire State College of nearly every governance committee. I chaired governance for the center that I was in toward the end. I was a member of GORC. I was a member of SAC. I was the chair of ETC. I was a member of Dean's Council, and on and on and on and on, many times for many years. I was a member of the union. I was a member of the Union Delegate Assembly. I was a member of committees in the union. I was a co-chair and then a chair of a statewide standing committee. I joined things. I was a member of an ad hoc finance committee for a parish. It's my nature to join things. Not all the things I've joined over the years have been as above board. Well, I mean, none of them were illegal or underground, but some of them were quasi-secret and secret societies. When I was a teenager, I belonged to a quasi-secret society called the Mayans. The Mayan order, which teachings really resembled a combination of astrology and Christianity. No shock there, considering that the founder was actually a fairly well-known astrologer. I belonged to them for years. I belonged to the Brotherhood of the Inner Light when I was in my teens, which was dedicated to attempting to assist archaeological digs. I mention these because I can. They're gone. I belonged to other groups, some of which I still belong to, secret and semi-secret societies and groups, all pretty harmless. I was an academic member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Now, I was only an academic member. I got emails from them. I got briefing documents on occasion. I had no say. I had no influence. But I was a member until I retired. When I retired, of course, my membership vanished. I'm a member of the National Futurists, although that's a more open organization. Etc., 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 etc. The things I'm involved with are effectively powerless. Some of them, I mean, I had no power within the Council on Foreign Relations. I was too minor. The other organizations don't really have any significant power or influence, but a lot of organizations do that are secret societies. To argue that Bohemian Grove is not one of the most powerful organizations in the world is insane. 1,500 members, all of them either very politically powerful or very wealthy, and a waiting list of more people who want to join who are either very politically powerful or very wealthy. Obviously, these groups can have power, can have authority, can have influence. Think of the Skull and Bones, a tiny secret order at Yale, a fraternal order that inducts 15 new members per year. And yet, both candidates in the 2004 election for president were members. Now, I grant you, John Kerry, being one of the only liberal Skull and Bones members ever. But still, it's impressive. Polk, I believe it was Polk's vice president that was a member of the Skull and Bones. George H.W. Bush was a member of the Skull and Bones. George W. Bush was a member of the Skull and Bones. Yet 15 members a year? 15 members a year. Larger organizations like the Masons are often cited because they've had, at one point or another, as much as a third of the Congress and Senate, and right now, 5 of the Supreme Court justices are Masons that we know of. But they're a fading order. The power they had when the country was founded is fading away. And many of the newer groups don't call themselves secret societies. but they function as them. One of those groups is the Bilderbergers. The Bilderbergers was founded by an European prince as a group to guide Western economies and Western society in ways that were intended to be good for people. There are 150 people, roughly, representing most of the most powerful countries in the world. They meet once a year at a different resort each time. Bill Clinton was a member. George H.W. Bush either went or sent representatives every time. George W. Bush, after Clinton, sent representatives every time, or went himself. It is generally believed that Barack Obama quietly sent representatives, and the rumor is very strong that Melania Trump went representing the Trump White House at least once. It looks like Biden's not involved, but he is pretty far into the labor movement, so maybe he's not. However, Bill Clinton was very involved. So, what do the Bilderbergers do? We know they meet. We know they talk about things like, for example, the economy. We know they come up with policy ideas. We know that they maintain a set of rules that allow their people to discuss the things they themselves have forwarded, but not what other members of the organization have forwarded to the public. And we know that Summers continues to push for policies that he thinks will benefit the world economic order, but that will certainly not benefit the common people in the United States. At one point, he called for more inflation. At another point, he called, just recently, what Stewart got him on, was calling for massive, deliberately triggering a recession that would cost at least 4 million jobs. And basically, he didn't exactly say, but you clearly got the impression that you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. They're not, by any stretch, the only powerful semi-secret or secret group. I don't think in any way people tend to go too far. The Bilderbergs are not satanic or evil. They probably mean well. But let's ask an honest question. I'm middle class. Most of you are. Almost all of America is, except the elites. Do you really think that a wealthy man who was Secretary of the Treasury, then the President of Harvard, and now an endowed chair, which means a great deal if you're from the academy, actually knows what benefits Joe or Sally, or for that matter, you or I? I don't. So even without the intent that certain people try to apply to the Bilderbergers, intent that I think there's no evidence of, they are going to push policies that benefit nation states and quite likely benefit their class, the elites, at the expense of everyone else. It's worth thinking about. Have a good night.